Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 762. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we are going to cover... it's really the Abu Dhabi hangover, folks. We're going to cover what's left and all the headaches and teeth gnashing and hand wringing and robe ripping that has happened. But before doing that, of course, I have to introduce my co-host tonight, and that can mean only one thing. That's right, I gotta go all the way to the right coast of American nestled nation's capital with a brand new boom mic, I might add, and a brand new headset, giving her a real Yuki vibe tonight for some reason. The lovely, the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
Hey, when you get P4, you celebrate it.
That's right. That is exactly right. When you've Yuki'd it, you know it.
That's right.
You know, you can send it or you can Yuki it. About the same. P4.
I also like that as a measurement for how much trunk space a vehicle has. How many Yukis will fit in there? Because they did the one video where Yuki got in the trunk with all the ice in the cooler. It was like, oh, I think you could fit like 6 Yukis in that Rivian. That's a lot of space.
6 Yuki. That's a 6 Yuki. Yeah.
Pretty good.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. How many, in a third row SUV, how many Yukis could you carry in a third row SUV?
A lot. No luggage, but you could carry a lot of Yukis.
Right. You could put a lot of Yukis in there. That's right. Yep. So how big is your car? It's a 6 Yuki.
Right.
I like that measurement. That's good.
It's like when they talk about measuring things in like Starbucks, right? Like, that's so expensive. That would cost you 600 Starbucks, right?
Right.
People can understand Yukis, right? That's a good unit of measure.
It is a good unit of measure. I like it. Well, Grace, I got to ask you, the whole world of TPF listeners is dying to know what's your hot take on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Everybody knows what Paul and I thought about it, and Paul and I took a hell of a lot of incoming mortar fire over the last week for our podcast about it and how horrible we were. But everybody wants to know, and they're all equal opportunity haters, Grace. So, we wouldn't want to deprive you the opportunity to get all of that hate mail too. So feel free to weigh in, Grace. The final race of the season, the final lap of the race, Max Verstappen on fresh tires, Lewis Hamilton on 22 lap old tires, gets past Michael Massey. Everything's going crazy. Mass hysteria.
Dogs and cats, right?
Dogs and cats living together. What was your take on the race?
So I think there are two issues. Issue one is the unlapping of cars, right? So they've been doing this for a while. I think I looked up since 2012, like that they've been, and I'd like to say hashtag thanks NASCAR, right? Like that they've been unlapping back markers. That wasn't always a thing, but it's now a thing. But part of the problem was that I don't know what's in the heart of Michael Massey, but I think he was like, oh, we should unlap everybody. Crap, we have a minute and a half. Unlap those 5 cars, right? I think if he had more laps, if there was more time, he would have unlapped everybody.
Of course.
Which is what you would have done always, right? And so I think that was his intent, but he ran out of time. So then he just unlapped those 5 cars. So yeah, that whether or not, that was legal or an illegal interpretation of the rules, or will that get clarified for next season? I can see that, right? So there is this issue of, was it okay for Michael Massey to just unlap 5 cars? The other thing is, that's really on Lewis and Mercedes in strategy. I don't see how you can fault Max for taking advantage of a strategy, and Lewis, they couldn't. He didn't pit under the virtual safety car. That would have been his best shot in hindsight. And then when they didn't pit him under the actual safety car, because they couldn't, he would have lost the position. And especially if you think it's going to finish under yellow, why would you pit him? So, Mercedes made the right decisions, but that's fair and square that, he had old tires. I just think that was like, how dare they make it so that Max and Lewis fight each other when Lewis has old tires? That has nothing to do with it, right? That's strategy, and they should have pitted him, and they didn't. And I don't think, they would have changed that decision, but no,
to that point, Grace, there are those who I think believe that Michael Massey, had Lewis boxed, Max would have stayed out. That's what would have happened for track position. And if Lewis would have boxed, Max would have stayed out. Lewis would have came out.
Right.
I absolutely believe that Michael would have removed the 5 cars between them.
I do too.
Regardless, there are people who think, oh no, if the system was reversed, they wouldn't have done that because he's like keeping Lewis down. And all. That isn't how Michael Massey rolls, and
I don't
we've
think so
never
either.
seen anything from Michael Massey that would allude to that.
No, I don't
So
either.
you're really now questioning the man's core integrity, which is not fair.
Yeah. No. I agree.
So to that point, I think you're spot on. And after time of reflecting on it, if Lewis would have boxed, he would have had brand new fresh rubbers and a vastly faster car. He would have eaten Max up in a heartbeat. And
absolutely.
And it would have been a whole different conversation. But the other thing about safety cars is, Grace, you've been watching a long time too, but every safety car, people get screwed. It happens.
Ask Lando Norris, right?
Yep. There are those that benefit from a safety car and those that get screwed from a safety car. It happens every time one comes out. And it sucks. It happens in IndyCar. It happens in NASCAR. It happens in all kinds of forms of racing. Paul could tell you all kinds of stories about that. But so it is a difficult situation. But I think at the end of the day, I think those are two of the items that you got to look at in the long run. You could question whether removing 5 cars versus waiting. Yes, I understand. Lewis didn't box. Max did. There were 5 cars between them. And if you're a Lewis fan, you're thinking, no, you got to release them all. That would have ended the race under safety car and Lewis would have been champion. I get it. I understand that.
Yeah. And I think that's what he meant. I think, again, I always feel like a broken record because we've been doing this for so long, but Michael Massey had what? A minute and a half to make a decision. You know what I mean? So there's something to be said that unlike, any other sport where you can send it to the guys in Secaucus and they can review the film and they can tell you what decision is best. You can't do that in Formula One. He had a minute and a half to make that decision. Right. And so I do think his intention was to unlap everybody because I could see, so this was my thing as a race director, you always want the race to end under green. You never want that race to end under any other color if you can help it. Right. And you want, especially in the last lap when there's just a point, like this is the dream scenario where you want Max and Lewis to be next to each other. Right. Yeah. You don't want back markers in between the two of them. So I can see, for whatever that's worth, why he made the decision he made. A lot of people, again, it's Twitter, whatever, and people were reacting right away, and how we react right away is different than how we react a week ago. But I think that's the decision most people in that position would have made. You want it to be green flag. You want Max and Lewis a chance to race each other to the finish line. That's his goal, and so I just think he ran out of time. Yeah. If he had had another 5 laps, this wouldn't have been a problem. He would have unlapped everybody, but in a minute and a half, he did not. And that's where that went. Although I will say, and I posted this as well, that, this evens it out for Lewis, right? Live by the Glock, die by the Glock. And it works out for everybody but Felipe Massa. So I hope Max Verstappen really holds the trophy tight because I'm pretty sure he's going to get a visit from Felipe Massa wanting his trophy, right?
Right. The only person that didn't benefit from either 2008 Brazil or Abu Dhabi 2021 is Felipe Massa.
That's correct. But for Lewis, this evens it out, right? Like we can stop talking about Glock in, 2007 or whatever year that was. And so we're good now. Live by the Glock, die by the Glock. But that's what happened.
Die by the Glock.
Right. So, but and people do always like to create the Latifi did it on purpose. I'm like, that's what they said about Glock, right? Like we have been here. And, but in a sense that I should have written the dates down, but I didn't. But it was like what, 08 and 09 were the 07, 08. When did Kimmy win it? 08?
07.
07. Okay, so then it was like what, 06 and 07 when they were separated by a point. That was the last time this happened, was the year Lewis won it and then the year Kimmy won it, and now here when Max wins it. So it's not something that happens on the regular, that a race director or anybody else has to make that kind of decision, that it comes down to the last lap of the last moment. But I will say as well, there is something to be said for 2 races in a row where I had to watch the post race because I had no idea what happened anywhere else. I didn't even know until I read Sean Kelly's tweet that he was like, did you know that Yuki got P4? I was like, no, my God.
Right.
Like, I have no idea. Like, to me, it like stopped at Carlos getting a podium. I was so
Right.
excited. I had no idea what else happened to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess we got to watch the post race so I can see what else has happened outside the podium.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that.
All of the
races were like
media,
that.
all the TV, everything was focused on Max and Lewis because that's where
Right.
the battle is. So that's totally normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't see much racing, down through the field because everything's on the line for the championship. So,
Yeah.
therefore
sure.
you want them both to go hammer and tongs to the very end
Yeah,
under green flag conditions,
Mhm. Most races, you're just like, there's a nap period in the middle, right? Like there's no napping in this race. So,
Right.
I just think that, and a lot of people, the criticism kind of was like, are you new to Formula One? Like, and I mean, we're going to get into that, but it was kind of like, I don't know what to tell you. That's kind of the way, motorsports works. That's kind of definitely the way Formula One works. And,
Right.
but people that are like, fire Michael Massey. I'm like, I'm now going on a much longer rant here than perhaps anybody wanted to hear. But I think the other thing too, is that as much as I honestly love that we get to hear the communication between the FIA and the team principals,
Mm-hmm.
that's new. And I wonder if we couldn't hear that, if people would be as crying for Michael Massey as they are. Right.
Right. And I think both Toto and Christian came out and said that, that probably, I think even Ross Braun said, that needs to stop, having the
love it.
team bosses talking directly to the race director because that, they were
Yeah.
pressing him hard on both front. Toto was saying, no safety car. And Christian saying, hey, when are you going to unlap the traffic? Right.
Right.
So they're going to lobby hard for their own interest. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of talk about that ending that communication.
But I think the thing is again, I've told this story a million times. I never realized what Charlie Whiting did during a race until I read that one random Peter Winter article where he talked about what Charlie Whiting does during a race. This is what he does. It's just that people know, I don't know, because we never heard Charlie Whiting, his
Right.
radio communication with the teams. We never heard him on the horn with, Ron Dennis or, John Todd or whoever. We never heard that. So all we get is what Michael Massey's saying. And I'm sure like nobody expected Charlie Whiting to die. That's never, he had set up people to underneath him, but he didn't retire. Right. So it's a very different situation. And I think we've all been in that where it's like suddenly that person worked here and suddenly they won the lottery and they don't work here anymore. And now we're screwed because you didn't do any sort of, planning for that.
Right.
And that's
succession
kind of
planning. Yeah.
Right. So that's what happened here, that Michael Massey kind of got the job, not in a way that anybody wanted. But I think that, the sport was great under Charlie and the sport's a mess under Michael. Like, slow your roll. I think this was always kind of the way it was. And it's just now we know about it because now they play that FIA radio that we get to hear that we never got to hear before.
Right.
And that colors how we view Michael Massey's job.
Yeah, it does. And to be perfectly fair to him or anyone else that might be in the role, it is a Herculean effort. I mean, that is not an easy deal to deal with everything that he has on his plate to try to deal with. I'm not here as a Michael Massey defense fund or anything. I'm just saying that it's not an easy job, and it's pretty tough. So
have some perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
And the negotiation that goes on too, because I know you guys talked about this after the Saudi Arabia race, but people didn't like how the negotiations happened. I'm like,
right.
That is literally everything in the world, right? Like I work in contracts. I don't get to just tell a contractor, even if they're wrong and they're 100% wrong, which isn't, it's always gray, right? Nobody's ever 100% wrong.
Right.
We can't just go in and go, Todd, remember that widget you were supposed to give me and you didn't give me that widget. Like that is never how that works. You always go, hey, Todd, remember those widgets we discussed? Were you going to send those to me? Right? Like there's always a negotiation, whether it's, your significant other or roommate or your boss, or like nobody gets to just walk in and tell you, listen, Christian, this is how you're going to take it. And you're going to be P3 and you're going to, I just thought it was interesting that their kind of negotiation happens.
Yeah.
That's exactly how the world works. And I did like that they kind of were like, oh, you mean Ocon's first. I did like that came up. Like,
yeah, right.
Oh, we're behind Ocon. Oh, okay. Right.
Oh, okay.
oh, that's not what I thought. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think that it's sports and it's in the moment. I mean, that's what Twitter's great about, is that you really get that like motion in the moment. But then it was just sort of like people that nobody does that, nobody gets to just go with an iron fist. Listen, Christian Horner, this is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen anywhere. So,
Well, not with Michael Massey, I don't think. I think Charlie was a little more definitive,
yeah.
maybe in the way that he managed a race, but he'd been doing it for decades, right?
He's also not as snarky, I don't think, which I kind of like the whole like, thanks, Jonathan. Pleasure to hear from you, Michael. Like, I love the whole like snarky greetings that they have for each other. That I enjoyed.
It's
thanks
sort of
for listening to me.
That facade of decorum,
It's just like, I don't know. It's very like a British, very New England. I kind of love this kind of like, I'm glad that you heard me.
Right. That's funny. Well, since this all happened, what has happened since the actual race itself? Well, Mercedes withdrew their intention to appeal, which means they will not take the matter to the International Court of Appeals. The International Court of Appeals, or ICA, is a court of appeals within the FIA. And this decision was made despite Mercedes saying that if it was a, quote, normal court outside of the FIA, they feel it would be a slam dunk, which I thought was a little heavy-handed.
He's got to say that. That's,
Yeah, it's a little heavy-handed because you don't know how the ICA would have ruled. You don't know. If you don't appeal, you wouldn't know. If you're suggesting it's within. But it was interesting because then that, it's comments like that beget sort of these introspective looks at the FIA. And I was over at the race, and good people over the race, and Scott Mitchell, I appreciate, respect his work and what he's doing. But he would, he'd been pulling at the threads for the last week here on that issue in particular, and quite a bit lately about the FIA's International Court of Appeals, or the ICA, and how it's embedded within the FIA. And there is this notion of it not being, quote, fit for purpose. Those are his words, not mine, which, by the way, I find very mechanical and dehumanizing, by the way, that term. But while I appreciate Scott's work and concern, I would recommend that anyone wondering how this process works, they should go read Max Mosley's autobiography.
Right.
So, yes, I know there's the whole German-themed spanking party thing, and I get all that. But it's actually a very good read, all right? Don't let that scare you off from it. It was a very, I would say, illuminating read on the FIA, the history of the FIA. It gives insight to how the FIA and F1 was set up, how it's governed, and what oversight the FIA has on motorsport in Europe.
Right.
And it is a very interesting read about that. Scott mentioned, well, this is the first time that it's really been kind of a competitor versus the FIA situation. That's the first time this kind of cropped up. And this is the first time that they've ever had to deal with the sort of competitor versus FIA. But I would say that it's not. I guess the insinuation, it's normally the competitor versus competitor in these situations. It's Ferrari against McLaren, or whatever it might be.
Red Bull versus McLaren.
Yeah, and so he was saying, well, this is the first time it's been sort of a competitor versus the FIA. But I would say I'd recommend taking a little deeper dive into the FISA-FOCA war. That is nothing, So that was interesting. That was all of the constructors, so look at that, and maybe even more recently, the FODA versus FIA. Remember the Formula One Team Association? So they had Formula One Constructors Association, FISA. You had FODA and FIA. You might look at those incidents. Those were competitors versus the FIA. They may not have been engaged in the ICA directly in those incidents, but this clearly has the FIA squarely, heavily involved as the antagonist in these two situations. Right. So very much like now, you're saying, well, Michael Masi and the FIA is the antagonist to the protagonist, which is Mercedes. And in this case, it's a competitor versus the FIA. Scott was saying that didn't happen. I would say, well, it has, and it's been all of the constructors versus the FIA, et cetera, a couple times, right?
Right.
So I understand the point that the FIA's International Court of Appeals, that there might be this instant knee-jerk reaction of saying, well, there's been not a lot of appeals in the history of Formula One, and most of them have not gone the way of those appealing.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. But I do think it's kind of interesting, the immediate innuendo that it wouldn't be a fair hearing, right?
Right.
So in some of those ICA hearings that didn't go the way of the person appealing, there's been some that were kind of like, boy, those kind of moving the goalposts a little bit on this issue, right? So maybe that lends itself to saying, well, would it have been a fair? And Mercedes automatically lobbing the grenade over the fence, saying, well, if this is a normal, quote, court, this would be a slam dunk. So I don't know that that's exactly fair to leverage that.
It isn't. I think it's absolutely the if my boys weren't here to hold me back, I'd beat your face in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So of course he's going to say that because your boys are holding you back, right? There's no way to ever know the answer. So of course you're going to say, well, if this was a normal court, I would beat you, right?
Right.
Of course he's going to say that, but it's pretty empty.
Yeah, it is. There's a few things to think about, and I kind of put my notes together for this show. For you veterans out there, you're going to know this, okay? So if you'll indulge me on this a little bit. So I kind of put this together for those that might be newer to Formula One, that didn't live through FISA FOCA War, FISA, Spygate, and all those sort of things that have happened in the past, and those appeals, right, and everything that's gone on. You may be newer to Formula One and saying, gosh, it's just weird, it's like a consistency, and this incident kind of prompted me to kind of read the rules, and they seem kind of ambiguous, and gosh, why didn't they just have a hard, fast rule about that? And why is there so much gaps and those kind of things? And they're all legitimate questions, by the way. If you're newer to Formula One, you would
always ask.
Yeah, you would naturally ask those questions.
Right.
Where's the consistency? Why don't they have rules for this kind of thing? Those are all normal questions. So anyway, without belaboring that point, I just want to preface this. So I want to talk a little bit about the rule ambiguity. And Grace, you and I have talked about this since 2005.
Yeah.
When we started the website and podcast. So there was a purpose for this ambiguity in the rules. And while Jean Todt had his own footprint on the FIA, the regulations were still operating very much like Max Mosley and Charlie had designed them. Now they've improved, they've added different things, they've clarified some wording over time. When Jean Todt was there, of course they did.
Right.
But by and large, Charlie was still running the program very much in the same spirit and letter of the law. If you could write rules for just about every situation you could imagine in F1, you may be able to account for maybe 80% of the eventualities. But there will always be incidents that you did not plan for. No one could possibly have planned for that.
Sure.
And through the ambiguity of the rules, it allows room, and in this case in the past, it allowed Max and the FIA to work within the margins of those rules to render a decision for the protection of the sport and of the FIA.
Right.
As well as teams or drivers or what have you, right? And so that was very much sort of by purpose, and Max in his autobiography absolutely spells that out.
Right.
The catch-all phrase of one of the regulations, I think it's in the 500, I don't know if it's 501 or whatever it is, it's a catch-all phrase of, quote, bringing the sport into disrepute.
Every sport has this.
Right. Now that has captured a lot of incidents in its web and been used as a blunt object to correct behavior the FIA deemed untoward. in the
Right.
past. And that could apply to drivers doing certain things. It could apply to teams. It certainly applied in McLaren with Spygate, certainly applied to Flavio Briatore and Renault at Crashgate. I argued it applied with Max's German theme spanking party. But having said all that,
Right.
that ambiguity is there. At some level, the sport needs the leeway to apply common sense and brand focused decisions that haven't been accounted for by a hard, fast rule. But that exists. Ultimately, where does that judgment list? Well, it exists in the measured minds of those charged with governing the sport.
Right.
You have to elect people that you feel have a measured mind and a measured approach to this, to work within the margins of the rule ambiguity, to actually operate the sport for its best interest, right?
Right.
And therefore, what's in the sport's best interest naturally would be, beget, or the thought is, would be in the best interest of the teams and drivers, right?
And I think you can see this on a micro level, right? I mean, you have a wife and kids, and if you're going to go buy a new car, you probably have a conversation about it, right?
Yep.
But sometimes incidents are going to come up and your wife is doing something else and you can't reach her in the moment and you have to make a decision, right? So you have to have you've been married long enough, you have some idea like, oh, well, this is probably the best road forward, but I'm just going to have to make the best decision I can and not have counsel with the rest of my family before I move forward with this decision, knowing that's not ideal, right? That happens to all of us all the time. And so that's what happens when these rules are written and you try to account for as much as you can, but there's always going to be spaces where you can't. And then I also think, kind of related to the earlier story, was that, should Michael Massey have as much power as he does as race director? And I would make the argument, well, yes, he should, but especially in racing where lives are eminently involved, right? Like basketball, Adam Silver doesn't need to have this kind of control because players get injured, but they're not, it's not Roman Grosjean, right? Like those kind of incidents happen, or potential incidents like that happen. And so you have to have one person who's in charge of when Latifi's cleaned off the track enough that we can move cars and there's no more marshals on the track.
Safety is first, paramount. Yep.
So I think that there is, that is true of all sports. That's true of all life. That's true of anytime you get two people together, but especially in racing, you need this, because those reactions have to happen so fast because you just can't stop it the same way you can other sports. And both track workers and the drivers' lives are in, or in pit crew, if you're in the pit lane, like there's a lot of humans involved that are in imminent danger that you need somebody that's able to say, right now this stops, or right now we're red flagging it, or, and you have to kind of have that understanding and sense between, yourself, the team principals, or whoever, that I would at least be able to say that, hey, in that moment, that's the decision I made. And we can argue for the rest of our lives if it was the right decision, but here's why I made it. Here's that transparency behind why I did what I did.
Right. Yeah. And it's very true. And I think for that reason, that's what you're relying on those that govern the sport to make those right measured calls. Bernie and Max knew all along that teams will never agree.
Right.
They knew that. Bernie was famous for saying that. They have too many personal agendas, too much money invested in the series, and this is why Bernie said FOTA, the Formula One Teams Association, wouldn't survive. And he even used the sort of tripartite temporary agreements. When the Concord expired, he had these sort of tripartite temporary agreements that he did to tear FOTA apart. And it worked, right? Because all the teams are in it for themselves. They have their own agendas, right? Sure. That's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way they are. This is why I've been sort of mildly standing on a soapbox about Liberty's new group led by Ross Brawn, as well as the power that Mercedes mainly and the manufacturers in general have had over the sport since the hybrids were introduced in 2014. I considered that an error in Jean Tot's sort of long-term thinking. because that's not in a position where you want to get this sport where the race directors are yelling at Michael Massey to do something, right? To have that sort of control and power over the sport that didn't exist when Bernie and Max ruled the sport. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitive. And they used to say, well, Max is the velvet glove behind Bernie's iron fist, or vice versa, depending on the situation.
Right. They played good cop, bad cop.
They did. Yeah, they did. I said many years ago that the fans dancing about singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead when Max and Bernie left or were ushered out of the sport, they may very well rue the day they so gleefully celebrated their departure.
Yeah.
And this is the reason I was saying that. It's because, these rules, the process, everything is there. It takes a measured mind to operate this series. What you have now is a commercial rights holder that had no history in Formula One.
Right.
Come in, buy the sport, immediately are told that the regulations and the cars can't pass each other and all that. Well, we'll go out and hire the brilliance that is Ross Brawn. We'll start a technical regulations group. Technically, that should always have been an FIA initiative. Jean Todt seemed to roll over on that. Now you've got the Fox Garden, the hen house, on not only the commercial aspect, but the sporting and technical aspects, the car designs, all that. And you've got all of this going on. The teams, meanwhile, were given carte blanche and free reign to come up with a very expensive hybrid, meaning if they aren't there in the paddock, then the whole series dies. There's way too much power swing in the pendulum. The thing needs to be balanced. And the Liberty Media and Formula One needs to get out of the governing business or completely go to EU court and restructure that the FIA doesn't have sole discretion over all motorsport in Europe, which would be quite a battle. So they've got to figure that out. Now, the FIA, I think under Jean Todt, has in certain cases folded like a cheap tent. And I think what we're seeing is the knock-on effect of that. Charlie, tragically, as you mentioned, Grace, passed away. Nobody was anticipating that. Michael thrown into that role. He doesn't have a Herbie Blash. He doesn't have these seasoned veteran lieutenants around him that have seen everything in Formula One. Is Joe Bauer. Joe does a great job. But anyway, there's a lot going on there. So before you start taking arrows and lighting flame on them and shooting arrows, just take a little deeper dive into Formula One's history, especially if you're new to F1, and look at the regulatory challenges over time, the decisions that have been made, some of the results of the decisions, some of the criticisms of those decisions. Some of them sound familiar today as they did in the past. So there's a lot more to unpack here, I guess, ultimately, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, and I also think too that, I remember not so long ago that now I've been working long enough in my chosen field that I'm like, we did this 10 years ago.
Yep.
Right. So there's some amount of age or experience that comes with, you never wish Ding Dong the Witch is Dead. Every management change brings its good, brings its bad, right? Never, I work for the federal government. So to me, it's, every presidential administration, who I vote for has nothing to do with what my job looks like or what that administration does. There could be people I didn't vote for, and there are good things they did, and then there are bad things they did, and same thing, right? No one, person is ever like the best person, and this person usually isn't the worst person. It's usually some mix of those. And so I think that the same thing here. So you never want to say like, whoa, those guys were the worst. I'm glad these other guys are coming in, because everybody brings their own mix of good and bad. And I think when you've experienced enough things, right, you're like, oh, this came up 10 years ago, and that's even what you're speaking to, right? Like, if you've only been a fan the last 5 years or so, right, these are things that you don't know about necessarily, or that history isn't familiar to you. And so it is worth it for sure to do that kind of deep dive and to see what Bernie was all about, or why do people say those things? I mean, when I first started, that was, people would be like, oh, blah, 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 whatever. And you're like, oh, why do they say that? Now, right back in the day, that was, we didn't quite have social media or the internet quite like we do now. But, I I think that's where the effort is. And I think that helps you grow as a fan of a sport to be able to say,
It
oh,
does.
let's read those things. Let's learn about those things. And none of this is haphazard, I think, is another thing too, right? Everything developed for a reason, good, bad, or otherwise. So
Yeah. And here's
Yeah.
here's another thing just for newer fans too. If at all possible, don't if you're a new fan because you watch Drive to Survive, that's awesome, that's great, but don't just stop there. Don't skim along the surface of Formula One. Where Formula One gets really interesting is when you start taking a little bit of a dive and start going deeper into Formula One and its history. Total Wolf knows it. Christian Horner knows it. They know what teams they came out of. They know the history of those teams. They know the regulations. They know the drama. They were there for much of it. They all know it. So I think you'd find F1 even more entertaining if you started to dive deeper into the issue of pick any one team. Pick a like Crashgate 2008. That was fascinating. Spygate with McLaren ending up with Ferrari's information. That was
5 pages.
those 5,000 pages that they got from Ferrari. That was fascinating. It was the highest penalty. It was over 100 million pounds or something in fines.
And they're just getting out from under that, right? Like, so what,
and that was the down. When that happened, folks, that's why McLaren is just now starting to claw back with some performance. That gutted him, took the stuffing out of McLaren. So
and I think
amazing stories. So don't stop there and don't just skim on the surface and say, oh yeah, and that's kind of why I took exception with Scott's comment that, this FIA International Court of Appeal is not fit for purpose. Well, no, wait a minute. It's the same thing. I had people on Twitter saying, that FIA start procedure was ridiculous. They're horrible at that. Well, the FIA start procedure saved Roman Grosjean's life.
Right. That's right.
So be easy here. The FIA serves a purpose. It's evolved. It's getting poised now to go through another big change. But it is fit for purpose because it oversees all of the motorsport in Europe.
That's right.
It does a hell of a lot of good with Hans and other things that it's developed in safety and the monocoque and safety tests. Folks, you can't take an incident like this because you're mad on the outcome and just use that to slather everyone with hate about it, because you have to be more measured than that. And so I would just caution newer fans to take a look at that. Look at some of those past ones. And like I said, the autobiography for Max Mosley it's an interesting read. It's a bit of a page turner. And that's a good one to learn the history of the sport, like the autobiography of Murray Walker, not the autobiography, but the book about Bernie Eccleston is a great book, the New Angel. But anyway, just my thoughts. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox, but
just a small one, just a minor.
Yeah, right,
a
right,
mile
right.
soapbox.
Well, I don't want everybody to get out into the long grass on this thing and get unhinged from I've seen people canceling. They say, I'm done before, let's not overreact.
Right. I don't know. I guess I watch enough other sports as you do that's like, I guess it's always the old joke about the Cleveland Browns. Like, you guys are terrible. You're ruining my life. I'll see you on Sunday. Right.
Yeah,
like
right.
There's always some part of fandom that is like, I hate these guys. Fine. I'll see you in 3 months. Right.
Right.
So I do think there's some part of that comes with it. And I guess, whether, that's not always something to take seriously, but I think that I also think there's a lot of great content creators, if you will, out there now, right? People that have been in the sport. I think of somebody like Mark Priestley, or you can, listen to Paul Charsley, right? Like people like that have experience either in Formula One or in other racing series.
Yep.
That you're able to get an insight now that, again, I think was really hard to find 20 years ago. That
it didn't exist for you and I when we were in it.
Right. Like if somebody didn't put an article in Autosport, I didn't know about it. Right. That was really the only way I learned things. So I think that there's so much space now to learn things and to see different perspectives from people who you should be listening to that have that insight. And so, but I think,
take a measured approach to that, because There's some legacy F1 journalists who, like Mark Hughes and Adam Cooper and Ben and
Yeah, sure.
John and over at Motorsport, and some really good guys. Gary Anderson's a great guy over at the race. There's some really good guys. I don't agree with everything they say.
Right.
And the only reason I don't is because I've been watching the sport for so long that some of the comments don't quite comport, but maybe we just viewed that incident in 1997 differently. But there's a lot out there to harvest, and I think you make a good point, because back when I was
Right.
starting to watch this, there was no way you would get this information, and that's why I like Drive to Survive. You get to see some fun. Yes, it's dramatized, of course, and it doesn't tell the whole story, but at least gives you a taste of it. And now I'll take the next step and dig really deep into
Yeah.
Formula 1.
Go do that homework. I think that's what makes anything interesting, right? Digging into it and finding things and learning things out. And so
this I can say with confidence, that if you're a newer fan of Formula 1 and you just got into it, you watched Drive to Survive, you started watching it was kind of riveting, I can guarantee you the deeper you dive into the history of Formula 1, the more enjoyable Formula 1 will be for you. That I can guarantee. It won't be disappointing. Some of the boycotts of Kyle Lamy, with apartheid, all this stuff, it's amazing to get into the meat of it. Some reflections. I thought those were your reflections, kind of just my soapbox there. I wanted to share with folks a couple of reflections just from the team bosses. In this past week, this is what Toto said. Lewis and I are disillusioned at the moment. We're not disillusioned with the sport. We love the sport with every bone in our body, and we love it because the stopwatch never lies. I would very much hope that Lewis continues racing because he's the greatest driver of all time. When you look at it from the point of view of the last 4 races, he dominated on Sunday. There was not even a doubt who would win the race, and that was worthy of winning the World Championship. But if we break that fundamental principle of sporting fairness and the authenticity of the sport, then suddenly the stopwatch doesn't become relevant anymore, because we are exposed to random decision making. And it is clear that you may fall out of love with the sport if you start to question, despite all the work you've been doing, all the sweat and tears and blood. So it's going to take a long time to digest what has happened on Sunday. I don't think we will ever get over it. It's not possible. Certainly not as a driver. I would very much hope that the two of us and the rest of the team can work through the events, and with the FIA and F1, we can utilize the situation and improve the sport going forward. But you can never overcome the pain and distress that was caused on Sunday. To me, it still feels surreal. And when I rethink the situation, that on lap 57, the right decision was being taken, that no cars will have to unlap themselves. And 4 minutes later, out of nowhere, suddenly 5 cars were allowed to unlap themselves between Lewis and Max. And 10 seconds later, the decision was taken that the safety car would come in. To be honest, for me, that still seems like a nightmare. And that's why I was in total disbelief on Sunday, and why I'm still feeling the same today. So
was this taken from the video of him standing in front of a cement wall, which is like the most depressing video I've ever seen? Did you see that?
I tweeted a picture. I said, why does this remind me of a scene from THX 1138?
I thought he looked like Mike Myers Dieter from Saturday Night Live. Yeah, right.
right.
This is where we dance, right?
Yeah.
It was just that was such a weird video. Like,
I know. Yeah, it's almost like a hostage video.
Yeah, it was very. That was very weird.
Very strange,
and it was very long too. And I'm like, why is this like 20-minute video of Toto just standing there like this in front of this gray wall, which is not how he is at all, right? So I don't know.
Wearing all black, he was kind of like,
get down.
It was kind of like,
it was a very odd video. I thought
really weird.
Yeah.
I get it, Toto. I get it. And had you boxed Lewis and Max came and Max stayed out, I don't think you would be fighting on Max's behalf quite as hard.
No.
If you boxed and Max stayed out, and because I think Massey would have removed the cars between the two leaders.
Right.
Championship was between 2 cars.
Yep.
And the teams heavily pressured the FIA to always, when at all possible,
Correct.
have a green
Right.
flag race, right?
Mhm.
So he's under this pressure. He removes the cars that could impact the battle between the two champions. It's not up to him to determine
Yeah.
on who's fresher tires.
I said
That's
that,
a
right? I
strategy
totally
issue.
agree.
Yep.
That's
So
right.
I get it. But here's Horner's point. He said, I did find it
We
disappointing.
won, neener. Exactly.
Yeah.
Fooled you.
Right. Yes. So yeah, it's exactly what it was for him. So
Yeah.
and Toto was like,
Hey, what happened?
yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, here's what Christian. I did find it quote. I did find it disappointing talking about Mercedes that they weren't. Oh, that there wasn't a single member of Mercedes team below the podium. And it's a shame that they've taken it in the manner they have. Emotions run high. They have been winning. They've been a winning machine for 8 years now, and at some point that has to come to an end. So many decisions had gone against us. Even at the beginning of the race in Abu Dhabi, there is no penalty given to Lewis for cutting the chicane. Lots of people have said that Lewis was a sitting duck in Abu Dhabi, but tactically, Mercedes made an error. They had the choice to pit. They chose not to, and they left him in that situation. Max just refused to give up. You didn't hear him moaning on the radio. Every lap, he drove his heart out. Then suddenly, a chance presented itself. When you look at it, his pass at turn 5, I don't think Lewis was expecting him to go there. He didn't even defend. He was waiting for him to more in turn 6, but Max took him by surprise. Classic Verstappen. There has been considerable criticism of Massey, but Christian Horner felt that he wasn't to blame. And here's what he said: he said that the abuse that he was getting online was unfair. And Horner said, it's an exaggeration. Latifi, I'm sure, didn't intend to crash. It was just an accident. The marshals did a great job of recovering the car in time, and Michael opted to get the race going again. It's unfair, the abuse he has received. One side is always going to be unhappy.
Can I just say that those two quotes, I think they're both right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you can absolutely see from both perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both fair points. And of course, Mercedes is unhappy and Red Bull's a little more happy. But yeah, I mean, I do think there's absolutely a line. Like the idea of Latifi getting death threats, that's absolutely wrong. Nobody ever plans to crash ever. Right, except with that one incident of Crashgate. But nobody honestly intends to crash. And to think that he did it, but again, these are all the same things that were said against Glock. That was just like people. That's just not how it works. And I mean, that's always a line. I guess there's always a place to say I don't like Christian Horner, but that's very different from I'm gonna cause him harm.
Yeah,
that's a line.
It's insane. Okay. Yeah, and that's what I said in the last podcast. This hate and threats and stuff to Nicholas Latifi is so far over the line.
Never okay.
So base. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just sophomoric. It's so base. That anyone would do that.
I agree.
So anyway, that was sort of a.
But I do want to give props. I do love the Red Bull. If I push Lewis wide, but I don't go off the track, then it's legal, right? I was like, see, that was good. It was good. That again, Michael Massey didn't buy that logic, as Christian Horner pointed out. But I did love the idea of like, but I didn't go off the track.
Yeah, so it's good.
Well, that's right. So we're all good here.
Yeah,
genius.
That's parsing of words that between Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and now Abu Dhabi.
Genius. And so I think that's what you want. And I think that I do think that's where that kind of like post-race debrief from multiple sources, and you'll find, I think it's the same thing of like a movie critic or a food critic. You find the person that speaks to you, whether it's Will Buxton or some, whoever, that you're like, oh, I find this, again, like I mentioned Mark Priestley, I always think that he has a lot of personal experience and a lot of good points. And then he answers a lot of viewers' questions really well. I think he really has a thing going there. But it's a good way to gain some insight. You can listen to these different points and kind of find, different perspectives. And certainly that's what we try to do here, right? We're three people trying to provide some different perspectives and some different angles. And hopefully it's, I know from talking to you guys, and I know from talking to our listeners, that sometimes it's like, oh, you're right, I hadn't considered that point. I'm glad you brought it up, or I'm going to bring that up on the show, and I'll do my best to remember that you're the one that told me that. Right. So I think that's why you need that community. But yeah, there's definitely a line out there, and people calm down.
Yeah.
No need for that.
Yeah. It's out of control.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think there's truth in both statements.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it is. I had Lewis for my fantasy pick. I had Lewis winning the race. Absolutely. I had it Lewis, Max, Bottas. Was my podium, and felt totally comfortable with that pick.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was shocked when all that went down, just like everybody else was. So, it's easy on that on
Again,
the haterade.
I just focused on Carlos P3,
Yeah.
And then that was something else that I also thought that was interesting that, I kind of read about later, was the idea that unlapping those 5 cars, well, everybody's racing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what does that mean for everybody that was behind Max?
That's right.
How did their race get screwed up by this decision, and why we don't talk about Pierre Gasly, or we don't talk about, Lando Norris's race or something like that, because they're further back in the field. Yeah. Or there was some talk about what if nobody's going to, I never expect that to happen, that they're going to change the results after a race happens, right? Like that really takes a lot to do that. But if that happens, what does that mean for all these other drivers? Like, so we have to remember that there are 20 drivers out there, and it isn't just Max and Lewis. There are these other people too, whose races often also dependent on what decisions get made and where those back markers go.
Right.
As well.
Right. Yeah. It impacted those behind. I think it's a legitimate comment. Now, arguably, they weren't racing for the championship.
They weren't, but they were still racing for their own.
They were.
Position,
they were.
Right?
Yeah, they were.
And for some of them, there's a lot of money tied to where they finish in the
There is. And I haven't had the time to go back and look and see if keeping those lap cars in amongst those people fighting for 4th, 5th, 6th in the championship, 8th, 9th in the championship, if anyone, because those cars were left there, if anyone lost positions in their drivers or constructors championship, they may not have. And if they didn't, then it was kind of a moot point. But anyway, fair point. So no, and I agree. The thing is, I want to try to at least look at all of the sides of this because there's people that listen to the podcast that are Lewis fans. Absolutely, I like Lewis. There's people that listen to podcasts are Mac fans. Absolutely, I like Max.
Yeah.
And I think there's always. There's at least 2 sides of the coin, and usually 3.
Always.
Theirs, and the truth, right?
Right.
So somewhere in there.
So I think so. And I will say I did love, since Christian Horner was a Sky Sports pit wall person, that they then played his reactions to the whole last lap. Yeah. Those were great.
Yeah,
I mean, he really did experience every emotion in the course of that last lap, right?
I know.
So, in some ways, I guess that's how I started, right? Like when you have a race where I have no idea what happened in the rest of the race because I was so consumed by a certain position on the track, how often does that happen? There is some joy in that, or there is something to be celebrated in the fact that we've had all these really close races this season, and that I didn't know Yuki was P4. That's exciting. Yay. Right.
And now Christian knows what Ron Dennis felt like in 2008.
Yeah. And, it did also, bring me hope that maybe I will come around to Max Verstappen, who I have more than once referred to as a more talented Pastor Maldonado, because I realized I really didn't like Vettel either. Right. There's a lot of haterade for me towards Vettel and his years at Red Bull. So maybe there's a chance, Max, for whatever that's worth, that maybe I'll come around in a few years and I won't be so harsh on you. But I don't see that right now. But I definitely felt that same way about Vettel. And now I think we need more Vettel. Like Vettel's always, he's the best hype man for every driver out there. So more Vettel.
Well, we referred to Max as the plucky teen Max Verstappen for years.
When
he first came to the sport. The FIA Prize Gala No, it was they call it the FIA prize giving gala.
Okay, so I just want to say that I love that it's like the most British thing, the prize giving.
Yeah, or French, one or the other. Yeah.
Oh
it's
yeah,
the
you're right. It's
FIA
probably French.
The FIA prize giving gala. Here in America, we call that the award show.
Right.
The
Or a
year-end
prize
sort of-
gala would be fine too,
or
but
prize gala.
it's
yeah.
very literal. Like this
It is
idea of
very
like
literal.
prize giving, right?
Yeah.
Like that is why we're here. We are giving the prizes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had that on Thursday. So Toto Wolff and Lewis did not attend that.
Yeah.
It is mandatory for them to attend, as they were constructors and drivers in the top three, and the drivers are constructors. But they didn't. Toto Wolff said, no, both of us won't be there. And I won't be there because of my loyalty to Lewis and because of my own personal integrity.
Yeah.
So,
Well.
end of quote. I understand. I get why he would say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get all that. As I stated, though, the more I thought about that, the more I was sort of questioning the overall decision. So I stated this on the website. There's a part of me that certainly understands that Lewis may not be there. He may not be up for attending. I kind of get that, right?
Right.
And to be fair, he was being knighted at the same time and that week, and that's a big deal. And so he was finally being knighted. And also, to be fair, had he gone, I think the media would have turned it into a media circus
Yeah.
about the whole thing. And I think it would have taken away from the intent of the gala, to be honest with you. So I kind of understand from the Lewis standpoint. I don't know that I blame him. Certainly you feel like he got screwed and I'm getting knighted and I get it. It's been a long season, right? And I kind of get that. However, the more I thought about it, for Toto not to go is something I've thought a lot about over this week. And the more I've thought about it, the more I think it's the wrong decision. Toto doesn't just represent Lewis.
Right.
He represents over 1,000 men and women who have worked their tails off to win their 8th consecutive constructors title. And that's an impossible task in Formula One these days.
Right.
And as the leader of those passionate people, and passionate of what they do and going above and beyond, I think Toto should have been there to take the high road on what happened and honor those who have poured their souls into their work on his behalf. As a leader, I think you've got to take hits like that. You got to stand strong. You won your 8th constructors title. You being there is not a slight against Lewis. And I think Lewis, if Lewis had an issue with you going, Lewis should also know that it's a complete team, and what the team achieved is remarkable. And I think Toto should have been there. I'm not arguing about Lewis. I get it with Lewis, but I think Toto is the leader of that team, should have represented that team and showed a little bit more poise out of that.
Yeah. So instead they sent, James, my spirit animal is a blobfish, Allison, to collect the trophy on their behalf.
Jim kind of got that trophy. He was like, what am I doing? Where am I going?
I always think, it's always funny because I know that you don't play the Formula One racing game, but so at the end of the podium celebration, if Mercedes wins, James Allison is always the person that is the team representative. It's funny because he's way more excited in the game than he is in real. Same thing with Adrian Newey. Like Adrian Newey, I mean, he's a nice guy, but he's not he's not, Danny Ricciardo up there, right?
Right,
and so it's just really funny to watch him in the game that he's like, yeah, like he's Danny Ricciardo. And it's like, that's not really Adrian Newey's kind of thing there. But it always cracks me up. But that, James Allison is the representative in the game every time. But I mean, he went out and, said some stuff and got the trophy. And
it was fine.
Fine. Yeah.
It should have been Toto.
Yeah, I see that. That's a very astute point, right?
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do, perhaps.
As a leader, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Nikki Shields, I thought, did a nice job of hosting
She sure
the
did.
event. And it was an odd affair. Lots of people speaking their second and third or
Yeah.
second or third language.
Right.
So, fair play. I get it. That's to be expected. But it was hard not to feel sort of that cloud over the proceedings, and that's a shame for Max because he didn't do anything wrong here.
No, that's right. That's right.
And that's a shame. Lewis's presence was mandatory, so we'll see if there's any punishment for not attending.
Yeah.
But, some talk about that.
I do want to go before we go on. First of all, so they had a big thing right before they gave the driver's championship and the constructor championship for Jean Todt, right? Because he's no longer president, right?
He got the wall of helmets.
Yeah. So Stefano Domenicali, whatever. I feel like we need to come up with a clever name for Domenicali. We'll have to come up with something like DMAT. Like we'll have to come up with something clever for him, right? So anyway, so Domenicali, is presenting like Jean Todt is just like not my job anymore. Like he has that lift in his step, like of somebody getting a new job. Like, oh, you suckers have to deal with this. Like not me anymore. Yeah. So I thought that was really funny. And then it was so funny. So I'm like half watching it, and Domenicali goes, "And your two children are here." And his son comes up. Did you watch this part? His son comes up, who looks exactly like Jean Todt.
Right.
I'm like, well, that's definitely Jean Todt's son. The second person comes up, I'm like, that guy looks like Felipe Massa. I'm very confused. I missed the sarcasm in Domenicali's presentation.
Right.
That he only has one son, and his other son, right, is Felipe Massa. But I think it was enjoyable that I just very literally was like, oh gosh, that seems weird because his first son looks exactly like him.
Was his wife Brazilian?
Right. Exactly like Felipe Massa. It's very weird.
Yeah.
But I thought, it was nice. I did not watch the whole thing. We watched part of it because it was quite long. I did like that they used the kids. I love the one kid who wore the bow tie because they all wore their like a blue racing suit. Like they all had the same color racing suit on, the kids that gave the awards out.
Yeah.
And one kid wore a white bow tie. I was like, that's the kid that you got to watch out for. He knows what he's doing.
Right.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
You're all wearing that. I have this one thing that's going to make me stand out. It was very clever. So
yeah. Well, it was kind of funny because you're right about Jean Todt, and and literally that week, the FIA had their big vote to replace Jean Todt, and so it was given to Mohammed bin Sulayem. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm American. I typically don't pronounce names right, but. So he's the new FIA president. He received 61.62% of the vote of the FIA member clubs. He won over Graham Stoker, who had 36%. So he's going to replace Jean Todt, who's been the president since 2009.
Right.
He's 60 years old, from the United Arab Emirates, president of the Emirate Motorsport Organization since 2005, was the FIA World Motorsport Council vice president for Middle East, former rally driver. He was a 14-time FIA Middle East rally champion, winning 61 international events from 1983 to 2002. And so he was elected to a 4-year term. He appointed Carmelo Sanz de Barros as president of the Senate, Robert Reed as deputy president for sport, and Tim Shearman as deputy president for mobility. Oh, and he also appointed Bernie Ecclestone's wife, Fabiana, as the vice president of South America. And so she's the first
of South America.
Right. Yeah. And so she's the first woman to ever hold a VP position in the FIA, which is cool. But some are wondering now if that isn't a proxy for Bernie. In which the new president said, no, it's not. She's there on merit. So there you go.
That's right.
So, hey, when Max took over the FIA, he made some pretty sweeping changes to the FIA. And the new president could do the same. He could pull a Max. But Max was a barrister or a lawyer, so he was good at it. It'll be interesting to see how the new president will handle the Abu Dhabi Commission, as well as the other issues. He's already said that attendance was mandatory at the prize-giving gala, and if Lewis broke the rules, then there'll be punishment. So we'll see if he does that.
They'll send him to a Formula E race.
Yeah, or make him do some mandatory work on road safety.
Yeah, he could be like, the flag guy or something, right? Like
Right.
at the end of a construction site. Okay,
Right.
the guy that turns the sign or something, right? Like slow,
Yeah.
stop, right? Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. What are you gonna do?
I don't know.
I don't know
So
either.
there you go. So there's a new FIA president. This will
Yeah.
be interesting. Hold on to your hats. A lot of people, you kind of overlook these things. Oh yeah, Jean Todt, FIA president. Well, Jean Todt was not Max Mosley. Max was
No.
involved in everything.
And
Formula
Jean
One.
Todt's focus really wasn't in the he didn't muck much in the sports, right? That
He
wasn't
didn't.
really his area. That's not
Yeah,
so
he really didn't. And, to a point where, I mean, the first 2 years or something, I remember us saying, where is he?
Nobody
He's not
knows.
saying anything,
Right.
Why isn't
Max
he doing
couldn't
anything
get to
about
shut
this?
up, right? And
Right,
Jean
Max
Todt said
was
nothing.
weighing in on everything,
Right,
calling
right.
Jackie Stewart a certifiable half-wit,
That's right. That's
But you couldn't get a peep out of Jean Todt. So
Yeah.
this guy, completely different guy. He may have a whole different level of involvement, so hold on to your hats. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
it wields a pretty big stick at the FI. All right,
Yeah.
let's do some Albon's cats, shall we? Yes, it's that time. It's Grace's favorite part of the podcast, where she gets to regale you with Alex Albon's cat stories. No, go ahead, Grace.
There aren't usually stories about Albon's
No,
cats
I
for the
know,
record, but I do know a lot about cats. I don't know. I did feel that we should be relieved that at least with Lewis not winning the championship, we didn't have to see Toto Wolff in a very wet white shirt on the podium again.
Yeah.
Please buy that man some undershirts. All of them. Everybody on that team. If you're gonna
Toto.
wear all white. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Men
So
wear undershirts, Tiger.
especially when you're wearing a white shirt and you're gonna get covered in champagne. Like there's something
Yes.
to be said for there's a strong possibility that it might happen. So
Right.
maybe you should think about that. I don't know why that at some point dawned on me that at least,
That's
Christian
for
Horner's wearing it.
Susie's eyes only.
Yeah, right. Like we're good. Yeah, we didn't need that.
Yeah.
I do think I have enjoyed though. I think that I don't know. I guess it's the end of the year, and I just really want to give a shout out to everybody that laughs at my random jokes on Twitter, that provides good feedback. I think that we say it a lot, really do mean it. That I think the community here that we've created, and then stick around for some reason that I don't know, and enjoy this ride with us, have been really great this year. And I think that we've had a lot of good conversation, funny or otherwise, across Twitter about different things. So keep it up. I mean, we have 3 months to
well, that's just it, Grace. We don't
some more
stop
stuff.
in the off season. Now I know there may
don't.
be many out there that wish we would stop. And
So why are you still listening?
you may have very legitimate reasons why you want us to stop.
Sleep aid. I don't know.
And that's totally okay. I get it. We're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I happen to know that Jonathan Morris definitely wants us to continue, because he just sent some support today, which thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate that.
For sure.
Very grateful to all of our Patreon supporters out there who support us. And,
but I always, and I love that when people go to races and they provide us with pictures or insights. So John, thanks for the pictures. Great. I got some great McLaren pictures. So I just think that people, just on your side as well, keep up the good work, keep listening, stick with us through the off season. Where are we? Bahrain in the end of March. We'll be here before we know it. And
yeah, I don't know kind of what got into Paul. He's got a couple good ideas for off-season podcasts, by the way.
Oh, good.
I mean, he's normally the Kimi Räikkönen, like you, the Kimi Räikkönen
that's my
podcast.
job. I don't know.
I know, but he's like, hey, we could do this. And I was like, that's a great idea,
I mean,
Paul.
those were really fun last year, wasn't it last year? Anyway, like the song lists and our drivers by nation. And so I did enjoy those. We could do another trivia.
Everybody liked our rant cast too. So maybe we should do another rant.
Yeah,
cast, but,
right?
yeah, but he's got some good ones. We need to do a season recap at some point with him.
Yeah,
But, so anyway, yeah, but stay tuned, folks. We keep going all winter long.
That's right.
And as I tweeted, I said, look, someone said, oh, you guys are still recording. Yeah, we do. And most of the time we just lament the loss of Ferrari's Vroom event.
I know, speaking about things that just aren't the same anymore and that people should look into. Those
Ferrari,
always you knew
you
was
should
close
start
to the
doing
end.
that. They should start doing it again.
I have so many great pictures of Alonso as Santa Claus, like
you remember the picture, like the sled and Bernie Eccleston and who was it, like Kimi or somebody
like
on
a
sled
toboggan,
together.
right?
Yeah, toboggan or something. Who toboggans down the hill with Bernie Eccleston,
Yeah.
So now you could have fun with Vroom now,
Yes.
And you guys could get Yuki Tsunoda and Ross Brawn on a toboggan or something. I mean, it'd be fun.
God, that would be great.
So
Yuki would be hilarious.
Yuki would be awesome at that. That would be cool.
He would just be like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah.
Ross Brawn. I'm Ross Brawn. I don't know. I can't do a Ross Brawn, but.
Oh, I've got that. Here's Ross.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's Ross.
That's right. Michael Schumacher friend, Ross Brawn.
That's right. Very touching moment in the FIA Gala when they were handing Jean Todt all those awards and they handed him the mic and he teared up and he said, I wish Michael was here.
Yeah.
Very, very, and, there he is. There's the man. So very moist eyes. So anyway,
oh, yeah.
It's tough. But anyway, all right. So that does it for this show. Let us know what you think about it. Stay tuned because this winter is here and you get all the grace you ever wanted over the winter. And she's prepared. She's got her new headset. She's got her new microphone. She's got a new lease on life.
I apologize for continuing to run into it with my giant headphones, but
that's all right.
You know what I feel? I feel like, when you go to the dentist and you get x-rays.
Yeah.
And they put that camera right here and then run out of the room while you're like, oh, not turning around there. That's a terrible.
You're biting on that thing. And
that's what this feels like. Out of the corner of my eyes, it just feels like that big
and
x-ray
they put that heavy lead blanket and then it goes.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, great.
Did anything just happen? What happened there?
Although I have argued, because you also own cats, that when they sit on you and they smurgle right with their claws, I want that lead blanket they give you at the dentist because it doesn't matter how high up I pull that cover. They always find one place where there's some exposed skin. And I'm like, I'm dying. You're sharp. Please stop.
I know. They always put that lead blanket and I try to get it up there and it always just slides off because it's made out of slick vinyl. And it's
right, it is made out of slick vinyl.
Make this out of fabric and it wouldn't do this. And then I feel compelled. Should I hold it?
Yeah,
and no, because my hands are exposed to the X-ray. I can't hold it. I'm gonna die. So then I'm underneath trying to hold it by the little edges sewn, with my fingers like this. Hey, and I'm biting on it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're like, "Don't move," because you have that stupid film, and you're like, "I'm so sorry."
And I always think it's interesting because they always kind of position it, and then they're done, and then they walk away, and it's sitting there kind of bouncing.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want me to move, but the whole damn camera's bouncing. How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. The great mysteries, and yet somehow they do it every year, and they're able to look at it and go, "Yeah, your teeth look good." All right, thanks.
Crazy,
but
anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Now,
so maybe
now I will always think of that.
I know. Maybe we should have a dentist cast, and we could talk about our dental horror stories. That would be good.
Yeah, I just like that it has that little cuff at the top, so it protects your neck. That's what I need from the cats because they always figure out where can I jab you when you're not paying attention to me.
That's exactly right.
I know where that skin is.
All right. Well, huge thank you to our Patreon supporters.
Absolutely.
We could not and would not do this podcast without you. We will be going all winter long. So tune in next week. We're going to come back and we will have things to talk about and things to say. Who knows what they'll be. But until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long. Grace?
Have a happy holidays, and I'll see you next week.
Merry Christmas.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.